Pat, you're live.
Welcome everybody to another public live dive, our second one for the day here at Casuarina Point in Grand Cayman. I'm your underwater biologist Pat. Today on camera we have Emil and the surface biologist is Lauren today.
Thank you, Pat. So can you tell us a little bit about where you're diving, the depth and the temperature today?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm at Casuarina Point, which is on the western side of Grand Cayman Island, right out of the front of our very good friends Don Foster's Dive Centre. Now, I am currently at 10.3 metres, so about 35 metres depth, and I am in about 28 degree water, which is 82 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, nice.
Now, don't forget, if you have any questions, to send them in, no matter what stream you're using, Facebook, our website. If you're using Twitter, don't forget to hashtag diveLIVE, so we can see your questions.
Make sure you use hashtag diveLIVE and ask us anything that's relevant to what's going on in the screen. So, Pat, what do you hope to see today?
Well, I'm really hoping to see a turtle. This morning's dive, Lauren saw a little hawksbill. Now, we do apologise to anyone that was watching. We accidentally misidentified this turtle. After double checking, we realised it was Patch, was it hawksbill number 3, Lauren?
Yes, Hawksbill 003, and we have actually seen Patch a lot of times. It's becoming a favourite regular. We don't know whether it's a boy or a girl, but we have seen Patch 6 times now.
Yeah, so it's very frequent here on the reef. So we did say it was Hawksbill 007, which it's pretty obvious what we were going to name Hawksbill 007. But hopefully we get another Hawksbill so we can find 007.
Exactly, but the next one will be 007, so we'll wait patiently until we see that one. So anything else you're hoping to see, Pat?
Well, we are a bit limited as to where we can go today because we are having a few issues with the cable. So I'm going to be scouring around this little reef patch. So I'm really hoping for some angelfish, which actually, speak of the devil, we have a rock beauty just down here.
Oh, nice. One of your favourites, Pat.
Yeah, just near this black Durgan. It's on quite a mission. Here, I'll get out of your way here, Emil.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, we can see it right ahead. It's a yellow and black looking fish, and it is a rock beauty in the angelfish family with beautiful blue lipstick. It is a little bit shy. It's darting in and out of the rocks, but we can see it.
And to all our Dive Live family watching along, don't be afraid to ask. If you want to see something, request it, and I'll do my best to try and find it for you.
Yeah, we will do our very best. Now, each dive is different. You never know what you're going to see, but if you do let us know, we can try our best to find it.
Now, right here, it looks like we have a harem. So, right ahead of us there is a group of parrotfish, and now one of them is very bright blue and quite a lot more vibrant than the other 5 or 6 hanging around. They're quite brown and a drab colour, so this could be a harem, which is when there's one dominant male, which is this bright blue one you're looking at right now, and a lot of other females. So this male will protect this territory and use these females for his own, but this does take a lot of time and energy, obviously having to chase away other males, make sure that the females have adequate food, so he's essentially got 6 or 7 wives here.
Yeah, it's quite exhausting for the male, but there is lots of benefits, of course. He's got his mates right by his side always, so it's easy for reproduction. But as Pat mentioned, it's quite exhausting looking after all these different females. So it's the big bright coloured fish on the middle of the screen that we're talking about, and it is a parrotfish. And you can see it's crunching away there at the coral, and that's where the name parrotfish actually comes from its white beak that you can see really clearly right now. And they're not actually trying to eat the coral, as you might think. They're trying to get to the algae inside of the coral. So they accidentally do swallow lots of coral, which will be broken down in the stomachs to become sand. So very often, whenever you see a parrotfish on the reef, it will be pooping out sand. Isn't that right, Pat?
Yes, we see that quite a lot. Sometimes we accidentally come into the pathway of it as well, which you could imagine is not very pleasant being pooped on by a parrotfish.
Well, luckily it's just sand, and it is so important to the beach ecosystems. We need the parrotfish to remain in healthy populations for this reason. We need that sand production. And actually, one single parrotfish can actually produce up to 90 kg of sand per year from pooping. So Pat, CJ was just looking for clarification. The females can turn into males if the need arises. Is that correct?
Sorry, what did you say?
The females can turn into males if the need arises.
Yes, that is correct. So with these harems, if the male for some reason dies or is chased out, then another female will slowly metamorphosize and turn into the new dominant male.
Yeah, so they're all sequential hermaphrodites. So at different stages in their life, they will change sex. And I think we have some Christmas tree worms ahead of us right now.
Yes,
Two beautiful Christmas tree worms.
So this is actually just one creature here. This is a Christmas tree worm, which is a type of polychaete. Now, polychaetes are a species, oh not a species, sorry, a phylum of worms that also includes some of the earthworms that we see on land.
Yeah, so just for clarification, it's those spirally white looking things right ahead of the camera, and it does basically look like a Christmas tree.
Now these two Christmas trees that are coming out of it are called radioles, and this is kind of not only their sensory organ, but also their feeding organ, and they also have little photoreceptors. So whilst they're not true eyes, they do detect light, and so you can see that they're quite highly branched. There's a lot of little branches coming out there, and what they do is they sit there and they'll filter lots of plankton out of the water.
Yeah, we're getting an incredible view of this, and it's just so hard to believe that that is an animal. So Pat, we do have a request from Jenny to show us some brain corals, so that should be easy enough to find.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a little segment of one over here. This brain coral. Just...
Oh, yeah, I think we've got it ahead of us.
The brain coral is to the right here.
Yeah, just off to the right, we have a big brain coral, and you can see the name comes exactly because it looks like a big odd-shaped brain. You can see all those ridges and meandering valleys, and that's where the name comes from. So what you're looking at right now is actually hard coral. It's a colony of tiny, tiny animals, hundreds and thousands of them, all together to make this structure.
Yeah, so they have got quite a lot of deep depressions here, these valleys we call them, and that is where they will extend their polyps out of, as Lauren said. So what a polyp is one single animal that sits inside this coral. Now there's thousands of them that live in this one coral colony, and what they will do is they'll be extended, although they're not extended right now, they mostly do it at night time. So they'll be extended up, and then they'll just sit there. They're kind of, the shape is almost like just a tiny little anemone. And what they use this for is to grab food, just like the Christmas tree worms we just saw. Grab all of these tiny little bits of plankton out of the water and use it for food. They'll draw it, they'll grab it with the tentacle, put it into their mouth and digest it.
That's right. So that's how they feed at night time. So they have two different ways of feeding. And the nighttime feeding using their tentacles only gives them about 10% of the nutrition that they need. During the day is when they get all the proper nutrition, about 90%. So we can't see this to the naked eye, but inside each polyp is a piece of algae, just a little piece of algae, and there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship happening there. And symbiosis is just when two organisms will work together and each receive mutual benefits. No harm or damage is done to either organism. So the little piece of algae will photosynthesize just like a plant, and it will make food using the sun. And it will kindly give the food to the coral in return for protection and shelter. So this is how they predominantly feed, how they get most of their energy. And then obviously when the sun comes down, they can no longer feed that way. And that's when they use their tentacles, just like Pat described.
And just to highlight the diversity of coral, I'm going to show you a different species here, Acroporus cervicornis.
My favourite.
Yes, Lauren's favourite. It is called, the easier name to remember is staghorn coral because it looks exactly like a stag's horns. And we can tell it's a staghorn coral because it's got these white terminal polyps, which are the white tips you can see on the end of it. That's exactly what I was just talking about. It's obviously quite a different structure of the polyps, and therefore a different structure of the species itself.
Yeah, so Pat, who cares is asking, is it harmful to touch the coral?
It depends on the species. It's definitely harmful to the corals themselves, but not so much to me. There are some species, such as the fire coral, that do have special stinging cells. Well, they all have stinging cells, but the ones in fire coral are particularly harmful and they'll cause quite a blistery rash.
Yeah, we should never touch any coral ever. It's very damaging to them. They're extremely fragile, and actually, Pat, they all do have stinging cells, and it can be really painful if you get cut by any species of coral. Fire coral just happens to be the worst. So yep, it's harmful to both the coral and to us. And we have another great question from WK. Have you noticed any bleaching on the corals?
No, not at all here, which is really, really great. So there are a few coral diseases that I've noticed in small amounts, white and black band disease to be precise, but as for coral bleaching, it's really great. I haven't seen any here. Have you, Lauren?
No, I really haven't. Bleaching is when the coral goes pure white, which is where the name bleaching comes from. And this is when a coral is in a really stressed state, when it's very weak and very stressed, and it's expelled that algae that I was previously talking about. So therefore it's only getting about 10% of the nutrition that it needs. So this normally happens when the conditions change, especially when the temperatures get too high. So but I have not noticed it around the Grand Cayman, and apparently this area of the Caribbean actually managed to avoid the coral bleaching of 2016.
And now, while we're on the topic of corals, why don't I show you their cousins, the anemones. Now, if you remember me talking about polyps, you'll remember me saying that they kind of look like small anemones, but this is far from a small anemone. This one is called the giant anemone. And just like corals, they also have the stinging cells that we were talking about, the nematocysts.
Yes, and that actually answers Ian's question, can a human get sick after touching anemones? Maybe sick isn't the right word, but it definitely will be painful. And depending how bad the sting is, how many tentacles touch your skin and how big the animal is, if it touches you near your crucial organs, you can actually go into shock. So the sting is more powerful than you think.
Yes, so the top side of an anemone, as you see, is called the oral surface, and this is essentially a few rings of tentacles that will sit up just like this one in the current, and when something comes into contact with the tentacles, if it's not immune, it will paralyze it. Then they'll draw it in to their mouth, which goes down to the aboral side, which is the bottom. And when they attach, this is what they use for attachment. Now this contains a stomach also, where they digest that food.
Yeah, and that can bring us to another beautiful symbiotic relationship in the ocean with the anemone, and it's probably the most famous one. And normally anemones will be associated with clownfish. So 10 species out of 26 of the global clownfish are actually associated with anemones, where they live together in a symbiotic relationship. So these clownfish, which I'm afraid are not present here in Grand Cayman, they do develop a really thick mucus coating which protects them from the stings of these anemones. So very few fish will be protected. So Pat, do you know what eats the anemones? We have Paula asking.
So I'm sure there are some species that have evolved to be tolerant of the stinging cells of anemones and use them for food, but as for specific species, I'm not sure. Do you know this one, Lauren?
No, actually I don't. That's why I passed it to you. It will be difficult for many fish to eat it due to these stinging cells. We'll need to check that one. Thank you, Paula.
Now down here we have a ginormous barrel sponge, and there is a little grazeweed, which is a species of grouper, which is obviously used the inside of this sponge as its home. And now this barrel sponge itself is massive, it's huge. I would say it has a radius of about, or a diameter, sorry, of about probably about 70 or 80 centimetres, so just over 2 feet.
You are so good at judging size, Pat. And what you're looking at right now ahead of the camera is a big animal. So many people would not regard sponges as animals, but it is. It may be a really primitive, basic one, but it is an animal. And we're getting a really nice view inside, because normally there is lots of other little animals that live inside for protection. There was a video that went viral of a turtle sleeping inside a barrel sponge. So lots of animals will make use of this sponge.
Yes, quite a few species would use this just like it was a rock that has a big crevice in it or something like that. So a lot of smaller, I mean, this is essentially why there are a lot of smaller species here on reefs, because there are complex habitats just like this sponge, or cracks or crevices that they can use to hide from predators, and also to ambush prey in some cases as well.
Yeah, and sponges are so successful. They're everywhere on these reefs because of their design. So they are made up of glass spicules and they contain lots of toxins. So it makes them really inedible to most marine life. And now we can see a fantastic purple rope sponge. We're getting a really clear view of the pores, the little holes there, which is a classic identification feature of a sponge.
Yes, so sponges are in the phylum Parrotfish, which essentially just means pore bearing.
Yeah, so they bear all these pores and they actually draw in water from them and then expel them out through a hole at the top, and that's how they feed. It's a very basic way of feeding, but it's very efficient.
Yes, and it's also a super important function because it filters out a lot of bacteria in the water. Now, Lauren, you had a very interesting fact on it. What was it? 99% of bacteria that goes through will not come back out.
Yeah, good job, Pat. You listen to me. Yeah, they're so specialized at what they do that they will draw in water and they're able to filter out 99% of the bacteria in that water. So the water that comes back out again is almost pure, crystal clean water. And we have a question for you, Pat.
Yeah.
Tiva is asking, what is the biggest or longest sponge that you have actually seen in your life?
Ooh. Well, it would definitely be here on the reef in Grand Cayman, and when we were out at the wall, there was a giant barrel sponge. Now, this thing was huge. I would say well over a metre across, so probably about 4 feet across. And yeah, that would be very, very old as well, because some species are pretty slow growing.
Yeah, so we've actually managed to show you a barrel sponge, which is B-A-R-R-E-L, like a big barrel, and then we showed you a rope sponge. So they are all the same animal, but they just come in different forms, and each of the forms are designed to make sure that they can feed adequately. So we did see a hawksbill turtle earlier on, as Pat mentioned, and those are the biggest predator of sponges. They just love to eat sponges. So their stomachs are almost 60% full of glass fragments. Ouch. And it's still unknown how they deal with the toxins inside the sponges. So it will build up inside their muscle tissue, but it's unknown how it doesn't harm them in any way.
Now, if anyone remembers me talking earlier about fire corals, I'll just show you what they look like. Now, these are the ones that can give you quite a nasty sting. That's
perfect. Josh has actually just asked about fire coral this second, so perfect timing, Pat. And there we go.
That psychic sense with the diveLIVE family. So these actually are not true corals. They're called hydroids. And what's really special about hydroids is that they have both a medusa phase and an attached sessile phase. So what the medusa phase means is that it's actually little jellyfish. So a colony like this will form asexually, which means that the polyps reproduce by splitting themselves off and multiplying. But when they sexually reproduce, they will actually release a bunch of tiny little jellyfish that hold eggs and sperm. And these jellyfish will release the eggs and sperm, which will fertilise and attach and start a new colony, which I think is just unbelievable. They literally have 2 different life cycles, and we call that an alteration in generations.
Oh, you're so full of knowledge today, Pat. Emil, if we can just have another look at that fire coral, because people are really interested in it.
Well, this one's probably better to look at here, because we can see it's got its little polyps extended here, that really hairy kind of furry surface on it. And so this hairy surface, as I said, is their polyps. But unlike other corals, they have 2 separate types of polyps. So they have the dactylopores and the gastropores. So one is only used for stinging and harming and capturing, and the other one is only for, well, digesting and feeding, I suppose.
Yep, I was going to make it a little bit simpler and just tell everyone who's watching it's really easy to identify a fire coral by those white tips at the end. Obviously, you want to stay far away from them, so when you're looking at a fire coral, you can really see with those white tips at the end. So I believe the camera might have knocked a bit of coral there, so we apologise for that. Is everything okay there, Pat?
Sorry?
Is everything okay down there?
Sorry, we're just having a mix-up here with the cables. I've just fixed it up now, though, so we're all good.
Okay, sure, no problem. So you can see Pat is just hovering above the reef here, and right ahead of us we have a beautiful, what we sort of unofficially call a coral bombing. and we can see great sponges and corals all living together there. And they will be competitors. They will fight for space, light, and just to get the other out the way to grow bigger. And lots of fish that are just hanging around this beautiful coral bombing. To the left of the bombing, you can see small blue fish with a really full. That is the blue chromis.
Yes, they look very juvenile. They're probably about a third of the size that they can usually get. Yeah. And now, I would say that this is a cleaning station here, so nothing is getting cleaned right now, but cleaning stations are usually characterised by a really distinct kind of coral head with lots of these little cleaning fish on it. These little striped fish, the cleaning gobies, are very, very typical of cleaning stations. So they'll pretty much exclusively feed on parasites that they get off the skin of bigger fish.
Yeah, and it can be quite painful for these bigger fish. They don't necessarily love it. You can see them jerk away and flinch in pain when they're being cleaned, but obviously it is necessary. So Pat, I have a really interesting question from Schmidt Luca. He's asking about how difficult it is to speak underwater with the scuba gear on. So can you share a little bit about how that really feels?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How it feels to speak underwater with all this gear on and a full face mask.
How easy is it to speak?
Yeah, how does it feel to speak underwater? It's not the norm. So how does it feel for you to be talking to us underwater?
Well, it is tricky, but at the same time, it's, I don't know, it's become second nature. But, I don't know, so when you're diving and not talking, you're kind of breathing out and really focusing on it. But when I'm talking, I'm just talking, so I'm not really focusing on how much I'm exhaling or anything like that. So in a way, that kind of helps breathing. It makes my exhales quite a lot slower, and sometimes I actually use a little bit less air, which is weird because usually it does take a lot more air. But it's an acquired thing, and it's something that we're all working on here at diveLIVE. But you know, I think it's nice. I'm a bit of a chatterbox in real life, so it's good to be able to do it underwater as well.
Are you? I never noticed. No, that's a great explanation, Pat. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to connect you all to the nature down there talking.
Yes.
But we do have an air check request from Lady Starfire, so can you update us?
Lady Starfire always got our back, so I'm on 100 bar.
Perfect, so that's half a tank. So that's the symbol for 100 bars, so we've still got time left with us. Let's see if we can get a bit closer to the reef. And oh, there's a little chase of a parrotfish there. Let's see if we can get closer to these fish.
Yeah, so that's parrotfish.
Perfect. Yeah, we have a stoplight parrotfish up ahead, and it's the sort of reddy coloured one. It's mottled black and white. Oh, and right in front we have the rainbow parrotfish.
Yeah, so the one on screen right now was actually chasing a female. I thought it might have wanted to mate with it, but it appears more interesting in feeding right now. But it is always a good thing to keep your eye out when you see a female and a male interacting, because sometimes they can do these beautiful courting dances where they will kind of rub up against one another and kiss and dance up in the water, and then it will end with a big release of the sperm and eggs at the end of it. So it is quite a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, it is indeed. And both Daniel and Paula are asking about coral growth and how long it takes to grow. So this is a really important question, and we were just talking about corals. So all coral species, hard coral species, are very slow growing. They really don't grow more than a maximum a few centimeters per year. They're very slow. But the Acropora staghorn species that Pat just showed us, that's actually one of the fastest growing and has been recorded to grow about 10 centimeters per year. So still very slow, I'm afraid. So if it is damaged from anything, it will take a while to recover. Great questions though. And Michael is asking if we get any sea urchins in the area. Yes, we do. So Pat, keep your eyes open for some sea urchins.
Yes, definitely will. So they are generally in a bit closer, but they're always around the cracks and crevices out here on the reef. And now you'll remember me talking about this huge barrel sponge, and this is actually the one I was talking about. Now this thing is huge.
It's
probably
huge.
about 1 metre high and about 1.2 metres across, so about 3 feet high and 4 feet across.
Amazing. I could definitely curl up and sleep inside there if I was a mermaid. Looks very comfortable.
Yes, and it just goes to show how big a sponge can get in a healthy, productive ecosystem. And now, as we mentioned earlier, they do filter water, and I think it takes about 20 seconds for them to filter their own weight in water. So you can imagine just how much water this sponge here is filtering, and how important it would be to this reef. I mean, if this sponge wasn't here, there would be so much more bacteria around.
Yeah, so that's their function, that's their purpose within the reef. Most animals do have a function and a role to play. And like Pat said, they filter out the water equivalent to their own body size every 5 to 20 seconds, depending on the species. That's just incredible. Even although we can't see it, these animals are just working constantly. So you can see there's lots of white fluff, if you like. It looks like fluff floating about on the screen. And this is just plankton. And we do mention it in case anybody is wondering what it is. It's just plankton floating by, which is great food for a lot of the animals there.
Now, Emil, if you can come over here, I've got a perfect example to demonstrate these polyps, because both of the corals we've shown you haven't had its polyps extended, but here with this gorgonian, we can see that it's got quite a furry appearance, and this is because it's got its tiny little polyps. So each one of these is a single animal, so you can imagine just how many animals make up this entire colony here. And now
that's
this
beautiful.
is a gorgonian, which isn't a true stony coral like the brain coral and the staghorn coral we showed you, because it has quite a few differences. This one is constructed on an axial skeleton, so it essentially has a rod going through it that serves the skeleton. And now part of this is called the coenenchime, and this is essentially a primitive vascular system that actually protects these, connects these polyps. So they're kind of all intertwined and work together in a way, unlike the stony corals that are just literally individual animals inside the skeleton.
Yeah, well, we have had Florida Bard mention that it sounds like people are talking in the background, and actually that is correct. We are operating from Don Foster's Dive Centre, like we mentioned, and we're actually outside, so there are some other people around, so you heard correct. We're sorry about that, but as long as you can hear us clear enough. So Pat, how deep are you now?
I am at 12 metres deep, so just about 40 feet.
And Pisces Bobby is asking, is there a strong current? That's interesting. How is the current today?
There is a slight current. It's not very strong at all, though. There is one that's noticeable, and I'm sure as Emil is attached to the cables, it's probably a lot more noticeable for him, but it is really, really just not a problem at all.
Yeah, and Take Care was asking what actually is plankton, and that's a really good question. It's a collective term for lots of tiny little microscopic animals, and this can include larvae, sperm and eggs of fish. It can include little tiny jellyfish or stingers. small crabs, crustaceans. It can include a whole array of things that are collectively known as plankton.
Now, Emil, if you want to come over this way, we've got a pair of white spotted filefish, and they are changing colour like it's going out of fashion right now.
Oh, my favourite. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we have it right in front of us in the centre, and it's got its spots out. So we did see one on an earlier dive, but it didn't have its spots turned on. So this is the white spotted filefish.
Yes, now sometimes these guys are solid yellow. Oh, there we go, it's changing colour now.
Oh, beautiful.
So they change colour from chromatophores, which are just cells that are filled with pigments, and they can change the way these pigments sit inside the cell, which makes the light reflect differently. So they can change colours very, very quickly, and it is a real special sight to see.
And this one seems a bit shy, but normally they are quite flamboyant, and we have a blue tang behind it. They're very blue coloured smaller fish and some parrotfish. Wow, what a beautiful collection we have here. So you can see, looking at this spotted filefish, it has really strong teeth, really sharp incisors, and that's for crunching through coral and breaking through hard shells of different animals.
And this one is in a pair, but the second one in the pair is quite a lot smaller than this one. So,
oh, it's got its spine up. Wow, we rarely see that. Fantastic. That big spine that just came up off its head.
And you can see it's using that flat disc-shaped body to get in under the rocks to feed.
Oh, great
so that's
work.
a real advantage for them. They can turn on their sides and get in really tight spaces.
Yeah, so that's why they've got such an odd-shaped body, so that they can just fit into cracks in the rocks and escape the camera. But that spine, that's really big. It's actually made up of two spines, but the second one is much, much smaller and just locks it into place. And this is why they're so closely related to the triggerfish. But that was great that we got to see the spine go up there. Beautiful fish.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now its spots have changed to a... Oh, wow, that was... Did you see that, Lauren, that colour change?
No, I didn't. I just missed it. Did it?
Oh, so its spots went from black to white, and then it just went solid yellow.
Oh, wow. No, we missed that here. I'll need to go back and look at it. But yeah, they can really quickly change their colours. It's just fascinating. And they're called...
Alright, so unfortunately I have hit 60 bar. So we didn't find a lot of fish on today's dive, but I hope you learned a lot about corals and sponges, because they are super, super important to this ecosystem, and I think they're beautiful, and obviously they are so diverse, which we tried to illustrate to you today. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you back here again at 7 AM Green Cayman time tomorrow. Thanks to Emil for his beautiful camera work, and thanks to Lauren for being our surface biologist and helping me down here today. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Pat.